Football is the closest thing the world has to a shared calendar. 16 cities, 3 host nations. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is already underway, and it is loud, emotional, and about as democratic as culture gets. A luxury department store is none of those things by default. And yet, right now, some of the most interesting retail activations happening anywhere in the world are inside them. Welcome to IADS Retail Park. I'm Maya, your host. Whether you've been with us from the start or this is your first episode, welcome. You've landed on a good one. Joining me today is Christine, Director of Markets and Events here at IADS, who wrote this week's exclusive on exactly this question. Christine, it's good to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Maya. It's a topic I've been wanting to get into for a while. The World Cup puts every retailer's identity under a very sharp light, and the department stores that get it right are the ones that knew who they already were before the tournament started.
Before we get to the retailers, let's anchor the economics. When you sit with the numbers on this tournament, what stands out?
The headline is genuinely impressive. 6 billion people projected to engage globally, which is more than the 5 billion who followed the Paris 2024 Olympics. But the macroeconomic impact is surprisingly modest at the national level. The US is projected to gain around $17 billion in incremental GDP, less than 0.1% of annual output. Canada is in a similar position. And Mexico is actually the relative winner here. 13 matches, around $3 billion in economic benefit, which lands between 0.2% and 0.5% of GDP. Mexico is also expected to see around 5 million visitors, generating more than $1 billion in tourism revenues, partly because tightened US immigration controls may redirect international arrivals away from the largest host nation.
So the national level story is almost a distraction from where the real action is.
That's right, Maya. The real commercial action is never at the national level. It's highly localized, concentrated in host cities, and in the choices individual retailers make about how much they want to invest in the moment.
And the sportswear side of things is essentially already settled before a department store even enters the conversation, isn't it?
Completely settled. Adidas kits 14 of the 48 participating nations, Nike 12, Puma 11, that's 37 out of 48 nations whose gear flows through those brands' own channels. Adidas is projecting around $1.2 billion in incremental revenue from the tournament, Nike closer to $1.3 billion. Retailers stocking Nike are reportedly committing 40% more football merchandise by volume than Qatar 2022, where about 14.4 million shirts were sold. For 2026, the projection runs between 18 and 23 million units.
Wow, those are some significant numbers, if you don't mind me saying.
They really are. But the demand for football product has largely been pre-distributed to monobrand stores and specialist sportswear retailers. The question for a department store is a different one entirely. What does the World Cup mean for footfall, for dwell time, for brand perception, for customer acquisition? How do you claim a moment that doesn't naturally belong to you?
Which is where the retailer by retailer story gets genuinely interesting. Why don't we start in Mexico, Christine? Because what El Palacio de Hierro is doing sounds unlike anything I've seen from a premium department store during a sporting event.
Sure thing, it's a case worth spending time on because they had to resolve a real tension first. Football is mass, democratic, emotionally charged, and El Palacio de Hierro is none of those things by default. Mexico hosted in 1970 and 1986, both woven into national memory, so 2026 carries enormous emotional weight. The creative brief explicitly rejected a tournament colors campaign in favor of positioning the store as context rather than sponsor. The central premise being, if the World Cup brings the world to Mexico, El Palacio de Hierro sets the stage.
And how does that translate in practice?
3 phases. The warm-up phase activates Noches Palacio, their flagship loyalty promotion, where purchases earn coins redeemed for tiered prizes each promotional weekend. What's been interesting in the early days is that it has pulled in both loyal, affluent customers and entirely new entrants simultaneously. It's working as a retention tool and an acquisition tool at the same time, which is a genuinely difficult combination to achieve.
The pop up activation they built for the pre tournament phase stood out to me. That brand mix is not what you'd expect inside a luxury store.
It's deliberately provocative, Maya. Adidas, Hisense, Don Julio, Buchanan's. The selection is curatorial. The pop-up assembles a premium watch party environment where buying merchandise, drinking premium spirits, and watching a match become one continuous experience. It reframes what the store is for during the tournament. And then during the match phase itself, the gastronomy programming shifts daily based on which national teams are playing. Watch parties in the store's restaurants and the Palacio Arcade, a soccer-themed entertainment zone built to extend visit duration across entire families.
The yellow pitch is the detail that stood out to me the most. A publicly accessible soccer pitch directly in front of the Durango flagship. No purchase required, open to everyone.
For a luxury retailer, that is a bold move. It's an act of deliberate democratization. There's a tension between free public access and luxury brand equity, and the bet is that navigating that tension well produces a new kind of cultural authority, the kind that advertising cannot manufacture. And alongside this, they've produced a luxury city guide distributed in premium hotels and airport lounges across Mexico City, Monterrey, and Guadalajara. Tourist service, brand ambassador, and commercial acquisition tool all in one.
All right, moving on to the US now. Bloomingdale's, Macy's, and Nordstrom are each coming from a very different angle. How would you describe what separates them, Christine?
Yeah, so they each answered a different version of the same question. And that's what makes the comparison useful. Bloomingdale's built the activation around menswear and lifestyle. The Game Day with Boss pop-up at the 59th Street Carousel runs from the 4th of June all the way through the 24th of August, well beyond the final, covering around 200 products, including roughly 70 Boss exclusives, a performance collection for the US men's national soccer team, and curated vintage jerseys that elevate the merchandise into collectible territory. Replicated across 6 additional locations near host city markets, with the Soho store getting an expanded version featuring FIFA 1904, a heritage-focused football collection.
And the Father's Day timing was well judged.
Yes, Maya, I agree. It was very well judged. It added a commercial layer that sits naturally alongside the World Cup framing: food, beverages, wellness. The World Cup gave Bloomingdale's a frame to double down on the male customer through a lifestyle lens, which is a commercial objective they would be pursuing regardless of the tournament.
And Macy's took a community-first approach.
It's actually by design. The World Soccer HQ activation spans Nike, Adidas, and Puma. No single sponsor dependency, with live entertainment, athlete appearances, and customization events nationwide. The more distinctive element is the partnership with the US Soccer Foundation, directing investment toward grassroots soccer access in underserved communities. It's an attempt to build emotional legitimacy with a soccer audience that Macy's doesn't yet fully own. The World Cup became a moment to make a claim about the store's role in American cultural life. The merchandise was secondary.
And then we have Nordstrom, which structured things quite differently. There's something almost editorial about the country by country approach, with Adidas across 35 stores.
The cadence is the interesting device, Maya. Every Thursday, new gift with purchase offerings and sweepstakes. Every other week, an archive zone spotlights a historically significant Adidas piece connected to that week's featured nation. Weekend programming aligns to whichever national teams are in focus. It creates a reason to return week after week, and solving the repeat visit problem is something most activations simply fail to do. The $75 qualifying purchase threshold for customization events adds a commercial layer without making the whole thing feel transactional.
Before we close, Breuninger in Stuttgart and Manor in Switzerland deserve a mention because these are markets without any direct hosting stake.
Which makes the decision to activate a genuine strategic choice rather than an obvious response to local energy. Groninger converted Edwards Bar, their flagship restaurant, into a dedicated sports bar with Adidas for the tournament's duration. That builds directly on what the store already is, a gastronomy and community destination. They ran a similar collaboration with Adidas in 2024 for the UEFA European Championship, redesigning the flagship facade. The World Cup is an extension of an existing relationship and an existing identity. Manor's One Game, One Love campaign features official jerseys alongside exclusive fan merchandise and lifestyle product, with a limited edition football bags collection by Geneva-based designer Joanna Bender anchoring the store locally while reaching beyond its usual fashion audience. And Maya, what holds across all 6 retailers is consistent. The activation succeeded in proportion to how clearly the store understood its own identity before the 11th of June. The tournament supplied the audience. The stores supplied the answer.
Christine, I came into this expecting a story about moving football merchandise during a major event. What you've mapped is something older, a question about identity. What kind of place is this? What is it actually for? The World Cup just turns the spotlight up and every gap becomes visible. Thank you for putting all of this together.
The stores that looked good in that light earned it well before the opening match, and the ones that didn't have 4 years to decide what they want the answer to be in 2030.
The full exclusive from Christine is available at IAD as exclusive insights on Substack. The link is also in the episode description. Follow us on LinkedIn at the International Association of Department Stores and visit our website for more. We'll catch you on the next one. Quick note, this podcast uses AI-cloned voices created with human oversight. All content is reviewed by experts for accuracy and relevance.